Joining us now, distinguished panelist Carrie Sheffield, Independent Women's Forum senior analyst, and Charlie Hurt, Washington Times opinion editor. Charlie, first of all, to both of you, welcome. This is a tricky day. Charlie, I don't like Biden. I mean, I don't agree. It's not personal, by the way. I just don't agree with his policies. I understand that. But I'm just asking questions, okay? How are we going to get all these Americans out? And how are we going to get the Afghans who have been assisting us out of there when we've got 6,000 troops stuck in this airport making the trains, the planes run on time? The other NATO allies are going into the streets of the capital. They're setting up their rendezvous. Jack Keane told me they're actually having helicopter drops. We're not doing any of that. So how can Biden say any American who wants to leave can leave? I don't get that. You can't just call up an Uber, Charlie, and say, take me to the airport. I got a plane flight.
Right. No, I think the only thing that we can say for absolute certainty about all that is that Joe Biden has no earthly idea how he's going to get those Americans out and those allies out that we should have, if they were allies that we wanted to get out before this happened, we should have gotten them out a long time ago. But honestly, I think what we're seeing right now is we're getting a pretty good glimpse of why Joe Biden ran the campaign that he ran. He didn't get out there and talk to people and make a campaign because this is what you would get. And I think a lot of people who have been covering Joe Biden for many years and for decades even in Washington on Capitol Hill, he was Senate Foreign Committee chairman for years, could have told you this is the kind of thinking you get out of Joe Biden. He talks. He rambles. Obviously, a lot of that is sort of getting increasingly incoherent. But he's not a very bright guy, and he doesn't have a very crisp vision about what it is that he wants to do. And it's, of course, how he helped get us into this mess in the first place and why he's such a disaster and incapable of getting us out of the mess.
Carrie, just hang on one second. I want to, because Charlie and I've covered this Biden beat for many. Biden used to come on my old TV show on another network every time he ran for president. And he ran for president so many times that I got to know him pretty well. We had quite a number of guest appearances. So we'll leave that there. But, Charlie, I just want to follow up. It's not only Biden. So he's supposed to have very smart people, right? The Secretary of State is a big job, right? The National Security Council director, big job. So he's got Mr. Blinken and he's got Mr. Sullivan. Those are the key policy operators, right? They execute the policy that the president wants. And that's where the bungles are coming. In other words, the president's not the guy who's going to assign, air tickets or how many troops or how many visas. Right. That's their job. Now, they had a cable into the State Department, a dissent cable saying this was going to be a disaster in a couple weeks. So they're in over their heads, Charlie. That's the point I'm getting to. They're in over their heads. Yeah. And that tells me nothing's going to be solved. You know what I mean? They're going to have to either let heads roll or something's got to give here.
And the number of times Joe Biden has come out and said something explicitly that was immediately or previously, in some cases, contradicted directly by these top cabinet officials tells you one of two things. Either they're not telling him things, or Biden is not remembering things, or he's lying about it, or he can't keep track of things. Whatever the answer to that is, it's terrifying, and it's a very bad situation.
No, that's exactly right. We don't even know if Biden saw the dissent cable from all those diplomats. Carrie Sheffield, take it to you. Another thing that kind of infuriated me about the press conference is his dismissal of al-Qaeda and terrorist threats. Now, first of all, the original mission, hang on a second, the original mission was to get rid of the Taliban. They were the terrorist threat. Now, that has grown, obviously, but I am told, look, General Keane, I just saw the guy, now it's about 15 minutes, 16 minutes ago. Al-Qaeda is sprinkled throughout the provinces of Afghanistan, Carrie Sheffield. How can the president say there's no presence of Al-Qaeda or a threat to Al-Qaeda?
Well, at this point, we should be used to his lies because he said that there was no chance that this was going to happen, this rapid takeover. That's what Joe Biden said in July, that this wasn't going to happen. So at this point, for us to expect truth from him, I think that's asking too much. Not only is it sprinkled, there were alleged senior al-Qaeda operatives that were in the Bagram air base that we fled from. Now, the predecessor, the Trump administration, had an orderly transition that was laid out very cleanly and very neatly. My former boss, John Solomon, had a great interview with Kash Patel from the Trump administration about what exactly that plan entailed. It never entailed allowing those prisoners, those alleged al-Qaeda senior operatives, thousands of them, thousands of prisoners, to be dispersed and released from prison. Those were supposed to be extradited. They were somewhere supposed to be sent to America, other parts throughout the GCC, the Gulf countries. That was a catastrophe. Another thing that I failed to hear anything about in that press conference, and those hand-picked journalists to whom he, went through his careful list rather than being exposed to real questions, nobody asked him about the weaponry, the $80 billion that U.S. taxpayers' money. I don't know what your tax payments look like, Larry, but I'm never going to make enough over the course of my lifetime to pay for what we spent on artillery, on Humvees, on all sorts of weaponry that is now going into the hands of terrorists who are then going to turn around and kill not only their fellow Muslims, but our potential allies could be killed by this. I mean, the NATO ally of Turkey, I looked this up, the distance from the border of Afghanistan to the border of Turkey, it's about the distance from Boston down to Florida. That's not very far, folks. So there's all sorts of risks that can happen with the terrorist overflow, and the fact that you said it, that Biden lied about al-Qaeda.
They got a lot of Black Hawk helicopters, too, among other things, which is pretty high value hardware. Charlie, I think at the end of the day, in a battlefield situation that this has turned into, we have to rescue our people, our Americans. And to me, this is the biggest gaping hole in the Biden narrative. And it was, again, underscored today at this news conference. He says, this quote, any American who wants to leave. Well, first of all, what does that mean? It's like, you mean folks, they may not want to leave because they're on vacation and they have a few more golf games to go? Of course they're all going to want to leave because the Taliban's going to hunt them down. We know that. But on the other hand, we don't want to leave anybody on the battlefield, right? That's a military tradition. Never leave anybody on the battlefield, dead or alive. We won't go out and find them. We're all stuck in the Karzai airport, 6,000 troops. God bless those troops. But how are we going to get all the other people? And some of them are going to be scattered around the provinces in Kandahar and places like that, Charlie Hurt.
Yeah, and I think that one of the probably a lesson that can be learned from 20 years in Afghanistan that 95 of us all agree upon is that you don't ever want to get into a conflict where you don't have a defined goal. And that has been the complaint. Wherever you come down on whether we should pull out of Afghanistan now or not, everybody agrees to that. And we're sitting in a situation right now where Joe Biden doesn't even know what al-Qaeda is on the ground, doesn't even know how many Americans are on the ground. And he's now trying to commit more troops back into Afghanistan for yet another goal that he won't even trouble himself to figure out what the goal is, meaning he hasn't learned anything from 20 years and trillions of dollars spent on this conflict. And the worry is that it's only going to get worse because you end up having to send more troops after more troops after more troops when unexpected things happen because you didn't know the most basic things on the ground.
Well, ironically, Charlie, I'll say this to both of you, we got to get out. We're going to wind up having more troops in there than we had before this catastrophe. I mean, that's the irony.
You're right, Larry. In fact, we just got word that they're going to be having to open up more Air Force bases.
Yes.
The one in Qatar where they've been shipping people is too full now. So now they're going to have to open up more bases. So you're absolutely right. It's getting worse.
I don't know.
Everything's worse.
This does not look like a great idea. Carrie Sheffield, thank you. Charlie Hurt, thank you very much.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.